let's talk about all the books I read in September and October. So over these 2 months, I read 24 books, but believe it or not, that's actually less than my normal. Fall is my busy season. I'm a wedding photographer, and so I spend most of my days editing photos and being out and about taking photos. So although I get through quite a lot of audiobooks, I don't get through nearly as many physical books as I normally do. So we're gonna go through book by book what I read this month, and I'm going to try my hardest to be concise. We're working on it. So first off, I am in my cowboy romance era, so while I am reading my physical books at night and when I'm out and about, when I'm eating all my meals, I'm actually reading on my Kindle. So I read during breakfast, lunch, and dinner when I can, and so I'm going through quite a ton of cowboy romances. I am doing a cowboy romance vlog, but honestly at this point it's going to take months and months, so I'm going to be as concise about these books now because you will hear about them again in a future video. So the first 5 books that I read in September are all Elsie Silver's Gold Rush Ranch series, I believe. Elsie Silver is apparently the queen of cowboy romances, so I wanted to go back to her first series because I don't want to read it after like her later better ones. So I started here. They didn't exactly give off the cowboy vibes that I was going for, but they were still really fun reads. I ended up giving Off to the Races 3 stars because it was essentially like 2 people just being in lust with each other. Like they are just to each other the hottest people alive, and so of course they're gonna get together and they're just a little bit annoying about it. It definitely reads like her debut, and it has a lot of like I'm not like other girls vibes, and so I wasn't really going for it, but I'm pushed through because I was like, you know what, I know she gets better every time, we're gonna keep going. So the second one is Out of the Gate, and it's a little novella about the grandfather who left the farm to the brothers, and his romance, like as they talked about in the first book, is supposed to be this like fairy tale like ideal that they're trying to achieve. But when I read it, I was like, oh, this is not the ideal, because he is 10 years older than her. She's 18, he's 28, and when the book starts, and then 3 years go by, so she's 21, he's 31, and it's supposed to be this cute little romance, but I just could not get over the fact that he knew her as a child growing up, and she always had a crush on him, and like this is supposed to be the ideal. He didn't have to be that much older. So I gave that one 2 stars. That did not feel good. In contrast, A Photo Finish, which is the next one, does the age gap a lot better. So of the 5, this one I'm going to count as my ideal romance because they met on an online forum a few years ago. They became online friends. They became a little bit more, and then it got cut off, and now years later they are reacquiring. It's the older brother who helps own the ranch, and then she is the newest jockey. I absolutely love these characters and I love their book. He is such a protective grump, like he does things for her without being told. Like she has this cute little donkey friend, and then like he wakes up and he hates the donkey, but then he builds it a shed and then they become friends. Like it's so cute. Now that I say it, is it a donkey or is it a horse? It's probably a horse. Anyway, I love their book because she actually gets hurt towards the beginning, and then she has to live with him because he's come to stay out. It's this whole ordeal, but honestly, it all makes sense, and I really love them as people specifically because they spent that whole year online just getting to know each other as people and as friends. So on an intellectual level, they are already well above most people. I'm not normally a fan of like meeting online kind of in books, but it actually worked so well for them because they were anonymous and then they figured out who they were. These two were able to communicate so well together. Like they have their boundaries, they know what they want from each other, and they work together as a couple and as people individually to get to where they're going, and I really enjoyed that. So this to me is like my ideal romance. I love it when the big grump like is just so head over heels for her, but like he doesn't show it, but he doesn't show it like emotionally, but he does it in like tasks for her, and it's really clear that he does love her. So I love that in a book. They are also 10 years apart, but they're aged up and they've known each other for years, so I like this version a lot better. So The Photo Finish is my ideal romance. The front runner is like my realistic romance. She is the vet tech and she is no nonsense. Like she doesn't need a man. She's awesome. I love her. And he is this Romanian ranch farmer who's a little bit dubious. They don't really like him. He's a bit morally gray. He's willing to do literally whatever it takes, just, you know, get things that he wants, but he's not a bad guy. So they spend the first few books kind of flirting and dancing around each other. And then finally when we get their book, we realize that like their flirtation gets even better. I really love books where the main characters are smart, and these two just intellectually match each other so well to the point where I was just eating up every page. Their banter was fantastic. Like their chemistry intellectually, emotionally, physically was just off the charts. I loved them as characters and as a couple. There's also a bit of fake dating in there. They agree to go on 3 fake dates, but by the time they get to the 3rd, like they're both head over heels for each other, and I absolutely love it. It doesn't feel insta-lovey, even though like the timeline is a bit compressed. They just know what they want and they know it's in each other. I love them as a couple, and our guy is very much a dirty talker. These are all smutty books, but this one I enjoyed the most. The last one in the series, A False Start, was just absolutely awful to me in every way imaginable. So it is again an age gap romance, but now it's 14 years apart. She is the younger sister of the last guy, and so she's 21 and he is 35. I don't like that age gap personally. Every part of this book was just it didn't have to be like that. They both have very tragic backstories. She has a father that was just really abusive and a really terrible family home, so now she's come to live with the brother and like things are getting better, but she's obviously like a very like anxious, moody kind of person. And it is so random because these books take place in Canada, but apparently he is the NFL's highest paid quarterback. What? He didn't play football at all growing up, then he went off to college and like got all these scholarships and then, you know, got signed to the NFL and then eventually got paid like the most out of anyone else. Like, the fuck? I don't know, to me that was just really fucking random. Like, it could have been like, oh yeah, I played for like, I don't know, does Canada have football leagues? I don't even know, I don't care. Like, he could have just played for anyone and like got money that way, but the fact that it's like the NFL's highest paid quarter, it was too much for me. But anyway, he was like a major party boy, like had everything in the world and kind of threw it away, got head trauma from concussions and then got taken out of the game, and now he's been in hiding for a decade. So he's like the town's biggest, worst kept secret kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, it's too much, it's too much. What makes it even worse is that supposedly he and the older brother are best friends because it used to be his ranch, but the brother bought it off him, so like that's how they know each other, and like they don't talk about their shady and traumatic past, so, like that's why they're best friends. But he's a total recluse up on the side of the mountain. Like, it's random. So they see each other in a dirty bathroom bar, like she's making out with this guy in the bathroom and like it's fine, and then he literally sees her and is like, I can do better. And I'm like, I don't like this at all. So yeah, that's how they get together, and then they realize who each other are, and they're like, no, we can't do it, but of course they're just so horny for each other, and like they're immediately like, that's the only person for me. I'm like, is there, you don't see anyone else your own age? But no, they are only for each other, and they spend the entire book reiterating over and over and over again about how lonely and broken and sad they are, and like how they're helping each other. Like, it's just, it was too much. It was too much for me. It just didn't need any of that. Like, you pick one, you don't have to have all of this. The only good thing was the epilogue, in which they both finally got some help. So those were the first five books. Those were all by Elsie Silver. I'm going to go back to her other work in later months. I'm reading a bit of other cowboy romances first, kind of like, you know, spread her out a little bit because I needed a break after that one. So the next cowboy romance I picked up was Buck Wild by Lauren Landish, and I gave this an aggressive 1 star. I don't normally rate 1 stars if I've DNF'd them, if I haven't really made it to at least the 30% mark, but oh my god, this one needed a 1 star immediately. He and his brothers live on this ranch, of course, it's how it always goes, and she is the new vet in town, and he, within the first like 14 pages, he criticizes her work, he loudly and rudely doubts her competency because she's a woman and she's young, and when she tries to stand up for herself, he retaliates by calling her a bitch. And I'm like, this is your first meeting and you want me to believe that these two end up together? Like, absolutely not. This is a violent DNF for me. It deserved a 1 star. I read the reviews too, and apparently they like jump each other's bones like 20 pages later, and I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm really happy I DNF'd it when I did. But anyway, after that, I started going through a ton of audiobooks. The first was Haunted Ever After by DeLuca. I love her Ren Fair series, and so I was really excited when this one came out. Shockingly, it does not take place in the fall, and that kind of ruined it for me, honestly. It takes place in a Florida town in the summer, and it's haunted, and the ghosts are real, and it's about the new girl in town who's bought a haunted house, and then the guy who's lived there for generations, and he absolutely loves it there, but everyone leaves him. So it's their story of meeting and figuring out the ghosts, and like trying to find the truth from the past and all this. It was a really cute book, and I have to say, it was one of the most accurate portrayals of what it's like to meet someone you think is cute. They're both overthinking every interaction they have with each other, like they are both nervous to see each other, but they're like, oh, but I like them. Like, it's so accurate. Like, this is my internal monologue every time I've had a crush in the past like 20 years. Like, it is so cute and wholesome. The only downsides is it is a dual POV, which I enjoy, but they pretty much immediately tell us that these ghosts are real. So from his side, it was like, yeah, ghosts are real. Here are the ghosts. This town is ghosty. And then from her side, it's like, are there ghosts? Are there real? Like, what's happening? And so I kind of wish we had delayed the the clarification that there are ghosts. Like, I wish we had found out as the girl did, because then I was going through the book being like, yes, ghosts are real, so like it felt pointless to be able to like ask these questions with her. Like, I wish we had been asking them with her instead of already knowing that yes, there are ghosts. So some of the times felt kind of repetitive and kind of unnecessary. So if that had been pushed later, and if this book had taken place in the freaking fall, I think this would have been a really, really great read. And then I listened to a duology by KJ Charles, starting with The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen. I really enjoyed this book. It is Regency, it is queer, it is our main guy is a new baron, and his love interest is the Prince of Smuggling. It is so fun. They meet in the city, they hit it off, something goes wrong, and then they reconnect out in the country on the prince's home turf when he is now the new baron. There's a lot of political scandal, like all the cast of characters are so much fun. There are unfortunately too many of them, so I did get overwhelmed at times, but I loved them all. I really loved each of the characters. Our Baron is a anxiety-induced little mess, and our Prince of Thievery is just over here. He's cool, calm, collected. He's in charge of the family, and like I loved them together. Their chemistry was so good. There's also like a whole mystery going on in the background that is really fun. Sometimes it was a little annoying, but overall, I just really enjoyed this book. The sequel, however, A Nobleman's Guide to Seducing a Scoundrel, was a very unfortunate and a bit of a disappointment as a sequel. It takes place like 20 years later from the perspective of one of the little boys in the story. It's our little boy grown up. He was so fun as a little character, and now he's a really boring secretary. It's so stupid. And then his love interest is the new Viscount or Earl or something. I think he's an Earl. But like his claim is just being kind of called into question by his uncle who wants the title. And so the entire first half of the book is like over explaining all these inheritance laws and like the laws and like how they're trying to get through all these loopholes. And then they get together and it's like a bunch of smut, but it's like really random. It just felt really disjointed. Like what I loved so much about the first book was the scoundrel of the Prince of Thieves. Like he was a very morally gray, like a fun character to listen to, but neither of these characters in the next book had that funness to them at all. The next book I read is A Dawn with the Wolf Knight by Elise Kova. It is her final book in the Married to Magic series. I've loved the series for a long time, and I'm so excited to have finally read the final installment. It unfortunately is not my favorite of the 5, I'm really sad to say. I just had expectations going into this one that were not met. So this is like a Little Red Riding Hood kind of wolf knight kind of story in which she is a witch and she goes into the forest one night and she accidentally absorbs some of the powers of the moon goddess. And so they are both then kidnapped by the Lycan, the werewolves, the Wolf King. And because she has these powers, the Wolf King is like, hey, you're my bride now. Like, we're gonna get married in a month and I'm gonna claim you and I'm gonna take your power. And so this whole like month is them trying to figure out like how to escape, what's going on with the Lycan. Like they have like all of these little clans and stuff that the Wolf King is trying to control. He's trying to maintain his power, but the people are they're not exactly questioning it, but they're like, hey, you don't have a legitimate claim because you don't own her yet. And so it's kind of gross. And so we kind of spend this time being like, girly, you need to escape, get out of there, or fix a system. Like how all the other humans that were brought into these worlds kind of fix their system. I'm waiting for her to fix it for them. At the same time, the knight that is in charge of protecting her, they start having a little bit of chemistry. You know, they have this going back and forth. There is a twist towards the end that I saw coming, but just is so unbelievable that I'm like, yes, I know it's coming, but like, really? Like, are you serious? And then of course it did happen, and I'm like, this is a stretch. Like, it's a stretch. So technically, I won't say it because it's a bit of a spoiler, but technically this is a certain kind of romance that like, it says it on the back, but I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't really believe this. So I was a little bit let down by that. But they are just like so horny for each other. And I'm like, look, guys, you are surrounded by all these werewolves who have fantastic hearing. Maybe don't have sex in his tent. Maybe. Anyway, so I did not really like any of these characters because they were not smart, like at all in any situation whatsoever. Like they finally do escape and like shit does not go well. I'm like, okay, you guys. But honestly, the biggest letdown for me is the ending, and I won't spoil it, but for me, all of these other books in the series have these grand fantasy endings, like things are fixed, things go really well, but this ending is just unlike any of those. And I guess it has something to be said about the quiet endings, but like in a fantasy book, especially the like ultimate, like the final fantasy book in the series, like the ending was just not what I wanted, like, at all. There was also this event that had been hinted at the end of all the other 4 books, and I was waiting for this to happen, and it didn't happen. So now I'm just entirely confused. Is there supposed to be like some extra epilogue that we didn't get to? Like, I am very confused on that. So I still love this series. I still love the books. Like, I love the art inside. They're just so worth it. I think I'm gonna give this like a year or 2 before I go in and reread and see if I missed something. Like, they're all standalones, but they're all interconnected because they all have the same worlds, and there's minor overlap of the characters. So I am going to reread this one day, but for now I am a bit let down. And then the last book I read in September is The Fall of Whit Rivera. I read this book and it just wasn't what I wanted in the moment. It is a cutesy little fall YA romance. She is helping her school put together this fall festival. It means a lot to her because it's where her grandparents like met and fell in love, and she wants it to be perfect. So there is a lot of representation in this book. I was honestly like astounded by how much representation there was in here. Like, I've never read a character who has PCOS. I haven't read too many books with autistic side characters. Her little sister is autistic, but there's just like a whole cast of characters that just like, and they all like kind of brought together their own points of views, which was really fun. But all this to say, like, the setup is really cute. It would have been perfect for a fall little romance. I just hated our main character. She's super type A, must control everything, wants everything to go perfectly, everything has to come through her. And like, me too girly, but like, she needs to calm down. And I have to remember that they are like 17 or 18. And like, you know, obviously I was probably like that as a teenager too, but like, just reading about it just hurt a lot. Like, girly needs to remember that the fall festival isn't all about her, and that she can ask for help, and others are there too. There's a little bit of character development, not too much, honestly. There's a reason in which we miss a good chunk of the fall festival, which makes me really sad, because the fall festival is honestly like a really cute little side plot that I really enjoyed, and I wish we had seen more of that. But I guess the other main thing is that we start out the book and she's in a relationship with somebody else. Like, they've been together for a long time and he just moved away, and so like they're together and she's trying to maintain this relationship, and obviously they break up pretty quickly. But I'm like, man, like, are we really supposed to be already rooting for somebody else? Like, this feels too soon, like, even for little teenage hearts. Like, I wish we had started off the book being like, yeah, they broke up like a month or 2 ago. Like, that just would have felt a lot better to me, instead of me being like, oh man, like, here's this character and like, we're already supposed to be reading for someone else. So in the execution, this book wasn't as great as I wanted it to be, but honestly, the representation alone is like important enough that I put this book, and I've already put it in another little free library in hopes that somebody else will read it and will enjoy it and see themselves in this book. And now we're moving into October. I am shocked that I read 13 books this month, because this is like the pits of my busy season. Like, I am editing, taking photos all day, every day. So the fact that I got through so many books, I'm impressed with myself. So the first book I listened to was Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. I have been wanting to read this for so long. I'm so happy I finally did. It is for sure just like the cutest little fantasy book in which the Queen's Guardswoman and the most powerful mage of the world escape their lives to go run a tea shop, bookshop in like this middle of nowhere little town, and I think it's so cute. I love all the little adventures that they have together. Like, it is very cozy. Some of the adventures are a little bit more violent than I was expecting, but altogether, just I love how it's like basically a collection of little stories that make up their new lives, and I think it's so cute. If I gave quarter star ratings, I'd give this a 3.75, but I don't. I think about it a lot, so I'm leaning towards 4 stars, but for right now, I'm keeping it at 3.5. I am, however, very excited to read the sequel. The next book I read is A Fainting Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. I have read her Bridge Kingdom series a couple of times now, and so I was really excited for this. I'm a huge lover of all things mythology, particularly Greek, but I am learning to expand into the Norse mythology. I already have a foundation of knowledge, so going through, I was really excited to learn more. So a fantasy, magical Norse mythology book I was so excited for. Like, it's beautiful, and it's written by one of the authors that I enjoy all of her work. Unfortunately, this book let me down. It starts out with our girl Freya, and she has this hidden power that she can't talk to anyone about, and she has this really abusive, awful husband, and through a series of events, she is actually pretty awesome in the first few chapters. She kind of gets her revenge, but at the same time, she is kidnapped and kind of sold into the warband of the local Jarl. Jarl, I guess he's like the general, the kind of ruler of the area, and he's on a mission to kind of conquer all of the other Jarls and little kingdoms around to become the king of what I believe is supposed to be Norway. And their big enemy is the king of whatever the fantasy name is for Sweden, across the fjords. So it's a very like visually alive location. I love the scenery so much. Like, it is visually beautiful. They're going up and around mountains. They have all of these bands of people living around. Like I can see myself being there, and I think she did a really well job of kind of place setting. The characters are all pretty complex as well. Like, the evil ones, like, they are evil. You feel evil, but you also kind of see their points of views, and like you kind of understand like why they are the way that they are, and like they are kind of genuinely terrifying for what they have the capability to do. There are some really intense fight and battle scenes in here. There are some really good training montages and all things that I love. So I think this really could have been a great book, but unfortunately there was a bit too much emphasis on the romance part of romantasy. And I'm really sad because I think this was kind of just leaning into the trend of romantasy right now. And I wish it had been more of just a fantasy with a romance subplot, because that would have been so much better. So they're going around, like, lives are on the line, things are going to shit, like things are going not well. You know, their futures are all at stake, and all she's thinking about is how the Jarl's son is just so hot and smells so good, like mid-battle. And I'm like, okay, this is getting a bit out of hand. There's literally a scene in which they're in a tent with all these other people, and they're like literally having sex quietly, and I'm like, oh my god, you are marching to battle tomorrow? What the frick are you doing? So just the absolute emphasis on like their own feelings and this love and this lust that they have for each other. It's not even love. Just amidst all of this like bigger, grander plans in which people are literally dying every single day in this book, usually quite graphically. Like, it did not sit well with me at all. Like, I love a good romantasy. I love a good romance. Sometimes more romance than plot, sometimes more plot than romance. But like this one, it was not the right setting for it to be so heavy on the romance. Maybe if this book took place over like a longer period of time in which they're not actively always going to war, and like, you know, when they're sitting around, like that's when their relationship develops, that would have been better. Or if like the normal plot pace of it happening and the romance was just something smaller, like those both would have been fine. But how fast we are going battle to battle, and how fast things are going wrong, and how many people are dying, with how fast they are falling in lust with each other, and not even in love, it's too much, and it did not feel good to read about. I'm like, girlie, put your head on straight, like focus on the lives around you. So I'm really disappointed. The last few chapters were actually so good. There were a lot of twists coming, and I kind of saw some of them coming, but some of them I did not, which does not happen very often. And so I don't think I'm going to buy the second book. I think I'm going to read it first, and then see if I like it, but this just doesn't feel like something I'm going to read over and over again, and that is really sad because I was really looking forward to this book. And then I listened to The Empress of Salt and Fortune. I won't lie, I was listening to this book. I always listen to books on double speed. I listened to this book once, twice, 3 times, the first chapter, and still did not know what was happening. And so I left it. I came back to it a few weeks later. I tried again. It didn't work. I put it on single speed, and I just sat there and listened to it to try to understand what the heck was happening, because this book is only 2 hours long on Libby. And so I was like, no, I need to just get through this book. Like, it sounds so interesting. I just want to understand what the heck is happening. So once I had it on single speed and I understood like the setup, then I kind of increased to 1.5 speed, which is again way less than my normal. And I was able to get through the rest of the book like that, and I loved it. So the barrier to entry is a little steep, but once you get into it, I think it is so worth it. It is the first book in a long line of series that I think all take place in this world, and I'm really excited to read the sequels. So in this book, the Empress has just died. She's been very old, and so this kind of record keeper comes along with their like magic talking bird who I guess remembers everything, and they happen upon the Empress's old home, and in there they find the Empress's longest standing, closest maid. The maid then invites the record keeper to come and stay because she wants the Empress to be remembered correctly, and so each day the record keeper finds like, you know, a hair piece or like a chess piece, something like that. They find something, they bring it to the maid, and the maid tells a story, like part of the Empress's story from her perspective. And so we're kind of jumping through time a little bit, like getting little pieces, but it's told in such like a lyrical way that it was just beautiful, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. You were getting such deep and detailed little glimpses into the Empress's life from the point of view of the maid, and so you don't always kind of know what's what's going on inside the Empress's mind. You kind of have to guess. But from the maid's point of view, like you can tell like how much caring and love is in this story. And you can feel it in the pieces that she's kept all these years. And I thought it was just done so well. So if you can get past the first little bit, you can kind of understand what's happening, kind of premise, because the back was no help. If you can get through that, I think it's absolutely worth it, and I'm really excited to read the rest. And then I listened to Honey Girl, and I am really sad to say that I DNF'd this after giving it like 10 tries. I would read a few chapters, couldn't stand it, would put it away, come back to it a week later, and I tried literally over like 2 months to get through this book, and I made it to maybe the 30% mark. And because I gave it so much of my time and energy, I did put it into my reading spreadsheet because I tried so hard to like this book. One of my biggest book icks, I guess, is when we have a people-pleasing main character who just does not stand up for themselves, but like we're getting their whole internal monologue of like all these injustices and like how they wish they were better, how they wish they were this, and like meanwhile like other characters are running all over them, and that drives me so crazy. Like stand up for yourself, damn it. Like it makes me so mad. So for Honey Girl, we have our main character, and she just got her dang PhD in astronomy. So she's a smart woman, right? So she and her friends go to Vegas to celebrate, and she gets super drunk. Like she never does this. She gets super drunk, and she wakes up and she realizes that she's married to like a radio host from New York. And so after a while, they eventually find each other and they start like texting. And their relationship is very sweet. But at the same time, she is going home and she's like burnt out because she's been go. Like went from college to grad school to getting her PhD, like has not stopped, has not taken a breath at all. And her father is the captain of a guard or something. He's in the military, and he's like, yes, you must be excellent. You must keep going. Like, I wish you had been a doctor, dang it. Like, why aren't you a doctor? Like, anyway, you must keep going. You must get a job. And she's like, whoa, okay, like, but like, I like astronomy, you know, she's so good in her field, but at the same time, like, she's having a hard time finding a job because she is a black woman, and that is probably not the best thing to be in astronomy. Like, it's a bunch of old white guys, so like, good for you, girlie, get in that field. But at the same time, she's like, I need a break, and like, yes, take a break, but at the same time, she's like, but I don't want a break, and I'm like, make up your mind. Her mom is back in, I don't remember, Florida or somewhere, and she runs like this peach grove. And so Honey Girl is like, I want to like, you know, just go back and visit mom for a little bit. And like her advisor and her dad are like, no, you must keep going. And I'm like, okay, shut up to all of them. Like, go take a break, go travel, go do something. You've been working your whole life so hard. Like, go visit your dang wife now. Like, go do something for yourself. But we're at the point where I'm like over a third of the way into this book, and still nothing has happened except she's bounced around from person to person telling her what she should be doing, and then we get her internal monologue of being like, oh, but I wish things were different. Like, just go, girlie. Like, I cannot stand her. So I am so sorry to all the people that love this book. It's just not for me. Next, I read Murder from the Modern Girl, and this was a fun book to read. It's 1928 Chicago. Our main girlie is going around and murdering a bunch of evil men because she can read minds. And so as she's going around, she hears the evil thoughts of all these men around her, and she goes, how can I just sit here and let these things happen? Like, she can hear about how he's abusing his wife, about he is, having a mistress, like all this stuff. And so she goes, oops, and she goes around and poisons them, and I love her for it. She's going around and she has all these disguises. She is so smart as a character. I love her. She is so cool. So she's going around murdering people, and then this guy in the back right here is a shapeshifter, and so he can change the way he looks, and he has this very tragic past that he's very in himself with, and so now he's tracked down this mortician who has this research about like changing cells. Like, he has the base knowledge of what he is, and so he tracks the mortician down being like, I want to work with you, like, I want your research, like, let's work together. But he is an anxiety induced mess, and he's so anxious as a person, and so he actually is hiding. He's like a janitor in the mortician's office, and he's like watching his like advisor from afar kind of thing. And so that is the setup of this. Like, things are going down in Chicago at this point. There's so much corruption in the city. People are dying. Like, she has an attempt on her life, and she's like, what the heck? Like, nobody knows I'm the one murdering these people. Like, what's going on? So there's a lot of like corruption going on here, and it takes a very long time to set up the book. These two don't meet until 100 pages in, but once they do, the story gets going, and it is so fast-paced and fun. Like, these two together are so, like, such a good time. Like, honestly, it's mostly her. She's awesome. But they're going through and they're trying to solve like the corruption behind everything. Like, they're trying to, get the city back to rights. Like, they want things to go better. And so this whole book, like, they eventually realize, you know, each other's powers, and so they start working together, and like eventually, you know, they get a little flirty and they get together, because it is like a little bit of a YA romance. But like the most fun of it is like them working together to like kind of take down the corruption in the city. This isn't a book I think I would read multiple times, so I am going to put it into a little free library, but like I highly recommend if you want like a little YA mystery kind of cute little romance on the side. Like, they're adorable. And then I read Ghostwood Song. Essentially, her brother is arrested for the murder of their abusive stepfather, and she needs to find her father's fiddle because playing it can bring back ghosts, and so she wants to kind of prove that her brother is innocent. The premise of this is so cool, but the execution is not cool, because she spends most of the book looking for the fiddle, and then finally when she finds it, she's like trying to play it, but she doesn't know how to play it, and so things are going wrong. And I'm like, girlie, you're kind of stupid. Everyone around her is begging her not to use the fiddle because it brings a lot of problems, and she's not listening to them, so then the problems come. There's also a really heavy emphasis on a love triangle between her and her best friend Sarah. Like, they've kind of been into each other for a long time, but like they are so not right for each other. And then there's like a new hot musician guy, and like it's kind of insta-lovey and kind of cringe. So idea of this, awesome. Very creepy fall vibes. Execution, not my favorite. It's going into a little free library. And then I listened to Don't Want You Like a Best Friend, but honestly, it should be renamed Don't Want You Like a Stepsister, as one of the Goodreads comments says. They are in Regency times, they become best friends at these balls, and they're like kind of getting closer and closer, and they realize that neither of them wants to marry, and so they're like, let's get our parents together. And so while getting their parents together, who have a history of their own, the parents are getting closer, and then they realize, oh wait, we love each other. Like, let's definitely get our parents together so we can be stepsisters and be together forever. I don't know, it was kind of weird. The book went on for way too long. A lot of their schemes did not go well because honestly, they're pretty stupid. So I was pretty sad about that. The beginning was great, but honestly, I get it. It's Regency times. They need security and safety. Becoming stepsisters probably is a good idea, I guess. I don't know. They just, I know there's a second book in which like they have two gay guys who they want to be together. So they're like, oh, perfect. We should marry them so that we can all be together, and like that makes sense, but I don't even want to read the book to figure it out because everything was just dragged on for so long, and there was smut scenes in this. I thought it was going to be YA. And then I read two more cowboy romances, so I won't go too much into detail. The first one is Cash, and I actually loved it. It gave me all of the cowboy romance vibes that I was going for. The beginning I kind of had to push through because they start out as antagonists. They're kind of mean to each other. He is a foreman of her father's ranch. She was pretty much taken by her mother a long time ago so that they would be you know, get away from the ranch life, and so now she has her own business and she needs money, and he thinks he's gonna inherit the ranch as the father says, and then the father dies, and so they go to the will meeting, and that's where they meet, and the will says she has to live on the ranch to get any money and to eventually inherit it. And he's like, what the heck? I thought it was going to me. And so they don't like each other. And so she doesn't end up coming to live on the ranch to get the money because she needs it for her business. And they start from dislike to, okay, you're fine, to like, to friends, to, okay, we're more than friends, to let's be together. And like, there's no third act breakup. There's nothing bad like that. There is a conflict. They work together. They get it together. The ending is the most satisfying thing ever. There are real cowboy vibes. They're out there with the horses and the cows, and they are working all day. He is way kinkier than I was expecting in this book, so like that was a downfall. But otherwise, I loved this book. The second one was Rootbound, and that was significantly less fun for me because it has pretty much the same setup in which the mother took the sisters away, and the father has the ranch. He took in the guy, like the guy's, you know, there, he's the foreman. But it is way less cowboy vibes because they sold off all the horses and stuff, and now it's a movie set. And it is way less of like a mature romance because they just see each other and they're just immediately slutty for each other, and they're like, no, but we shouldn't be together, but we're so hot for each other, like let's get together. So there's that, which just the romance of it wasn't very fun. And then there's this whole family drama aspect of it, of like there's a lot more family, there's a lot more drama behind it, and I'm like, okay, I honestly wish it just like been a family drama on the ranch with a bit of a romance instead of having it be a romance with some family drama on the side. So that one was not as fun. And then I read the first two books in the Luminary series. I unfortunately thought this was a duology because these were the only two books that were in Waterstones when I went and bought them in January. It is sadly not, and I realized that in the last little bit of the second book because it did not end like the way I wanted it to end, because there is in fact a third book coming out. pretty soon, but still, I'm very upset by that fact. But anyway, this is like Divergent meets Monster Hunters, and I think it is so cool. I actually loved these books. They are YA fantasy, and like some of the best YA fantasy I've read in a long time. Essentially, every person in this town belongs to a clan, and their last name all ends with one of the days of the week. So our main character is Winnie Wednesday, so she belongs to the Wednesday clan, and each of these clans is known for something. So Wednesdays are loyal, they are brave, like their symbol is the bear, and then they have like a scholar. Shit. I just had a contractor come in and put screens into my windows because there weren't any. So he got to see all my books and we got to talk about it. So anyway, where was I? So the Wednesday clan is all about loyalty, and then they have like a smart clan in which they run the university, and then they have like the leader clan and they're all the politician, and then they have the Friday clan, which is like the sad little decrepit clan in the corner, and they just like fill in all the gaps, and like their big mansion is crumbling. Like, why do we always have to have like one decrepit clan in which all the rest are like really rich and you know, flourishing and all this, so whatever. So anyway, this first book starts because Winnie's family has been shunned. Her father 4 years ago was found out to be a evil spy for like the evil clan over that way, and so her mother, her brother, her and her have been, they're like, they still live in this town because it's like all they know, but nobody's allowed to talk to them. Like, they can't become hunters, which is like a really big thing for them. Like, all their rights and all their privileges have been stripped away. Like, they are essentially no longer Wednesdays. Like, it's not good, and it's a 10-year sentence. So 4 years in, she's like, I've had enough. So on her own, she's been training to be a hunter, to take her hunter trials. Hunters essentially are the people that go out every night. So on Wednesday nights, the whole Wednesday clan hunters go into the forest and they fight off all the monsters that appear every night. So this is where the kind of monster hunting comes in, because there are monsters like kelpies and vampires and, you know, werewolves and stuff like that. But then there's also like other monsters that I've never heard of before. And let me see if I can find one. But they have these, there we are. They have these illustrations inside, and they are, I think, the illustrations of Winnie, because she is an artist and she's making her own nightmare compendium of like all the definitions. So some of them are quite creepy. Just imagining like you're going through the forest at night and you have to go and kill these things, like, oh my goodness. And so to be a hunter is like a huge privilege. Her mother used to be lead hunter, and now it's her mother's sister. And so they, you know, they want the privilege to come back. They want to be hunters again. And so on the eve of her 16th birthday, she is allowed to go to the hunter trials, and she sneaks in because she read the rules. She technically can take them. So this book is her trying to get through these hunter trials to bring, you know, status back to her family so they will accept her again. Except she very quickly figures out that she is woefully underprepared. Like, she thought she was training, but like it's not enough, and she barely makes it through these trials. So as she's going through, she's kind of realizing like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. Like, people die in these trials, she's gonna die. And so here's where I thought that this book wasn't going to be as good as it was, because on the back it says like her ex-best friend, you know, Jay Friday, like, is going to help her. And so I thought it was just going to be like a typical like YA romance. Like, of course the ex-best friend is going to train her, and there's going to be training montage, and they're going to fall in love pretty quickly. And it wasn't like that. And it was such a refreshing point of view for it not to be like that. Jay Friday is part of that crumbling Friday estate, and he's a loner, and he's just like in his head all the time, and of course all the girls are after him, but he doesn't notice. And so she's just like, they used to be best friends, but then, you know, when this thing 4 years ago happened, like, they all split off. And so finally he kind of realizes like what she's doing, and she's like, no, we're gonna train. Except like, you know, he does it in his own way. Like, it's like a bit like off-putting at first. She's like, wait, what's going on? Because he, you know, he's just like not acting like he used to, and so she's trying to figure it out. So this first book, she's trying to make it through the hunter trials, but then at the same time she's realizing that there's this new like monster out there that they've never seen before, and it is vicious. Like, she calls it the Whisperer, and it's basically like static that you can see, and it like chops people up in like a food processor. Like, a whole horde of vampires are just split to smithereens in seconds. And she's like, holy crap, like, we need to start talking about this. So she's trying to survive these hunter trials. She's trying to get her family back in line. She's trying to survive all, you know, like whatever this new whispering thing is, and she's trying to figure out what it is. So that's this whole first book. She's getting trained. It's such a good setup. And the second book comes along, the next things are happening. Like, she's starting to realize that the authority figures in her town are just not doing what they should be doing. Like, they are actively going against her, trying to figure out what this whisperer is. Like, things are going wrong, people are dying, and like people are not paying attention. And so this is her and Jay, and they're trying to figure out what is going on. Like, they have to keep training, like they have to keep going. And the way this book ended, like, I was like, there's no way, because there were obviously things that I guessed in or pretty early on in the first book that finally we figured out at the end of the second book. And I'm like, hello, duh. The romance literally doesn't happen pretty much until the end of this book. So like, it is a slow burn for sure. But there are just so many things happening in this book that aren't resolved. Like, there is a mystery about her dad that I'm like, you need to solve this mystery right now, but she keeps putting it off, and I'm like, no, do it right now, it's like really important. But she doesn't do it, and so I'm like, I got a little angry at her for that. She's, you know, she's just ignoring something that is potentially really, really useful and like really important. And so I'm assuming in the third book, they're obviously going to tie all the loose ends together. They have not brought in their other ex-best friend, and I know what's happening with her, but like, they just hinted at it in this book. So I'm really looking forward to the end of this trilogy. And honestly, this is going to be one of the best YA trilogies I've ever read. Like, it is so good. She doesn't give like, not like other girls' energy. It's not like really focused on the YA romance. Like, she's going through personal development. Like, she's realizing that, like, you know, she's glorified all these hunters all her life, but she's realizing she's scared. Like, maybe she doesn't want to do this anymore. Like, you know, things aren't as fine and dandy as they thought. Like, the authority figures aren't who they thought they aren't who she thought they were. Like, they're not doing what they should be doing. And so there's a lot of character growth, like really realistic character growth. Like, I am in awe of this series, and I can't wait for the third one. And then the last two books I read this one were both audiobooks. The first one is Delilah Green Doesn't Care, and this one hurt to get through, unfortunately. Basically, it like starts out in this small town in Oregon, and Delilah's mother has died, and so her father remarries, and then pretty soon her father dies. So now she's stuck with the stepsister and the stepmother, and she kind of grows up, and this is all flashbacks, she kind of grows up feeling like she's not wanted. She, you know, her stepsister is perfect, her stepmother is evil, and so she escapes the city to go to New York City and become a photographer. And now, present day, her stepsister is getting married, and she has hired the stepsister to come back and photograph 2 full weeks of events leading up to the wedding. And as a reminder, I'm a wedding photographer, like that is my day job. I get it that it's family, and I know it's different, but I have never been asked to photograph events 2 weeks leading up to an event before. Like, I've been asked maybe twice in my life to photograph the rehearsal dinner the night before. So like, I get that it's family, but like 2 weeks of activities beforehand, like, she's supposed to bring her camera to like a spa day that they're having. Like, really? You want photos of that? So like, that really took me out of it. And like, every time she brought out her camera or talked about her Instagram and all her photos, the way that I cringed every single time, because it is so millennial core, it's not even funny. Like, her photos are queer, and it's all about like women enraged, and they are all like in water, like they are all in bathtubs and stuff. And like, I get it, but like, these photos were popular 10 years ago. Like, I see the meaning behind them. I get how they can be really impactful, but oh my God, like, that's her entire portfolio. Like, that's it. Like, that's everything she posts. That's everything. She's like trying to get into gallery works, and she's like only picking these photos. And I'm like, oh dear God, okay. Like, I get it, but it's like so millennial, it hurts. And there's one point where she's talking about posting on her Instagram about how all of her photos are black and white. And on her Instagram, she never posts any captions. And like, the photo from that day is her at the airport next to the sign, and she's leaned up against the wall in her black skinny jeans, and her boot is like kicked up, and she's like looking off to the side. And I'm like, you did not need to go into that much detail about the post. Like, that is the most millennial airport / pose possible, physically possible. I'm like, oh, this hurts so bad. So that was pretty awful to get through. So anyway, the plot of the book is she's come back to town for this wedding, right? And she does not want to be there, but she's broke, and so she needs the money. So she comes back to town, and she goes to a bar, and the stepsister has 2 best friends. One of them is like, of course, the loud, abrasive redhead, and the other one is like a hot librarian blonde, and the hot librarian blonde is the love interest of the story, and she got pregnant at 20 maybe, so she has a little girl who's like 11 nowadays. I don't really know. And so she's a love interest. They go up to each other in the bar. The blondie doesn't remember the sister because she looks different. She's all tatted now. And so they get along, and the stepsister comes in, and they all figure out who each other is, and it's like, oh my God. And then Delilah makes a bet with the stepsister being like, I bet in 2 weeks, like, I can get your friend in bed with me. And immediately I was like, come on, like, who does that? Like, that never ends well, and it's a bitch move. Like, you don't do stuff like that. So anyway, the whole book takes place in these 2 weeks leading up to the event. They're going to these events. Delilah is like trying to ruin the wedding for her sister because like they don't like each other. And then the poor friend is just like trying to keep everyone together. But at the same time, they are wanting to break off the wedding because the fiance is a dick. And he's super controlling. And so there's a lot of like personal development that comes through for the stepsister's side, from Delilah's side, from like everyone's side. But like, oh my God, the whole time I was like, you idiots, if you just sat down and talked for 10 minutes, like you could have saved lifetimes of hurt from each other. Like, it just made me so mad. And of course there's like, you know, they get found out while they're hooking up and everyone gets angry at each other and there's a third act breakup, and I'm like, this is so painful to get through. I don't know why I pushed through to the end. Who knows? But I did, and I regret it. And then the last book I read this month, I thought it was going to be good, and again I was let down. It's A Fragile Enchantment. I love everything Regency. I love romance. I love magic. It's set up in the way that it's going to be so good, but I just hated the book. Oh, and I hate saying that. I'm so sad to say it because I want to read other work by that author, but now I'm scared to. I know it was popular a while ago, so if you don't know, she is a magical tailor, and she's brought in to, you know, make the wedding clothes of the younger prince and his bride. Essentially, it is very thinly veiled. She's Scottish, the princes are English, and the bride is Spanish. Like she speaks Spanish in the book. Like it's not even thinly veiled. They just have like Macklish for Scottish kind of thing. So anyway, she comes in, and her magical power is that she can stitch thoughts and feelings into the clothes that she's making. And so, you know, she at one point stitches like feelings of comfort and home. And so when somebody like touches the handkerchief, like, you know, like they feel comfort, they feel home, so like kind of thing. So it is really cool, and she does make very beautiful work. And now both the princes have like ground magic, I guess. They can make flowers come and go. And so the whole, like, the reason why the Scottish are mad at the English is because obviously they take over, but then the Scottish got their independence, but then the English, I guess, kind of like ruined their fields, and so now the Scottish are poor and dying, and so everyone's mad. And so she's like, oh my God, like if my grandmother knew I was here, like she'd be so mad at me, like, wow, how dare I make, you know, the wedding clothes of this evil English prince. And so of course when she sees him for the first time, she's like, oh, that is the most beautiful man I've ever seen in my life. And then the crown prince is like, this is my brother. And she goes, oh my God, it's the guy I'm supposed to be making a wedding thing for. And I'm like, oh geez, I'm so tired of that intro. But anyway, the whole book takes place over a month. But it's like, it's confusing because in the beginning, like there's an immediate time jump to the next week, and then it's like, this happens next week and this, and like, I think we ran out of weeks in there somewhere. Like, I don't think the timeline makes sense, and that bothered me a lot. But anyway, in this time period, she's making all of these pieces, and she's getting like 2 hours of sleep every night, right? And at the same time, she's becoming friends with the prince, and then friends with this other guy, and then like kind of friends with the princess, and then not friends with the crown prince, and they're all like hiding secrets from each other. They are all acting really odd. Nobody likes each other. Like the crown prince, like the prince and the princess do not want to get married, but they're like, we have to for duty and all this stuff. So everyone is keeping secrets from each other. Nobody is communicating whatsoever, and they're all just acting really dumb. And it pisses me off because, of course, our main girly and the prince are like getting closer and closer, and then finally it, like, I guess within a month, they've completely fallen in love with each other, and they're like hooking up all over the place, and of course they're gonna get caught because they're idiots. And like, we're supposed to be rooting for them? Really? Like, I don't want to root for any of these people. Like, I don't like any of them. Except for the side Spanish princess. She deserved more limelight. She was awesome. So yeah, that was literally the whole book where I was like, I'm not rooting for any of you. Like, just do your job and go home. Like, everyone just either talk to each other or do your job. Like, pick one or the other. Like, don't have this in between where it's just really messy. And of course, there's like a kind of Whistledown-esque gossip column going around that's like adding things to the mix. And there's like a revolution kind of happening. Like, there's a lot of behind the scenes things. But like, of course, our focus is on the romance because that's what it is. And in the ending is just wrapped up so quickly and like with a little bow, and essentially they go, yes, we will think about the revolution and feeding our poor people another day, and like that's how it ends. I'm like, what? So yeah, I am majorly let down by this book. I was really looking forward to it, and I finally had a chance to read it, and it just wasn't it. And unfortunately, that is a huge theme for all of the past 2 months. Like, I've just had so many books that let me down. I don't know if I'm in a reading slump and I'm just feeling like they're letting me down, or if I'm just not reading really good books and they're letting me down, but like, or if I'm just really tired and like I don't have the energy to appreciate it. I have no idea, but either way, these 2 months were not my best. Hopefully I have better reading months coming soon. I have a ton of fall books that I'm looking forward to. I know it's already halfway through fall, but I've been busy, so I have a few fall books I'm looking forward to. I don't have too many winter books that I need to do. And I have a bunch of cowboy romances I'm looking forward to, so hopefully I get some more 4 and 5 stars in there, because I have not had many recently, which makes me really sad. So the next reading wrap up I will do will be at sometime in December for November, December books, except in winters, because it's off seasons, I do travel, and so starting mid-December I will be gone for like 2 months, so I'm not entirely sure how I'm gonna do those videos. I'm gonna have to figure it out, but that is the next reading wrap up that I have coming out. I hope for your sake and my future editing sake that I was a bit more concise in these reading wrap ups. I think I'm getting better. We'll see. I will just get better as time goes on. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.